3rd of May, 2025. Unbelievable. And it's flying, flying, flying. But yeah, what's happening on the Bitcoin markets? Yesterday we had another all-time high. And if you look at the daily setups for today, Bitcoin is starting to look a little bit to the downside, which, as I said in the live stream yesterday in Alpha Trading, would not be a surprise to see that after all of the movement up to the upside that we've seen so far. You're starting to see a little bit of shakiness in some of the different indicators, then starting to veer towards the downside a little bit. And that's what we're seeing so far. Of course, that doesn't mean it can't go to the upside by the end of the day. It obviously can, and it very well may. However, for now, it is still looking a little bit to the downside. And yes, the 4-hour inversion to the 30-12 RMLR is still very much in play. I think it's down around a little bit somewhere around 107 or something like that, 105, 107, I forget the number. But it's right, you can see it rising over the coming days. If it doesn't hit it over the next few days, it'll probably, I think it'll rise to around 109 within a couple of days. So, like during the Memorial Day weekend. And yes, it'll be Memorial Day weekend, which means 3-day market holiday, right? Friday, Saturday, Monday. And that also means that there's a sale on the Alpha Trading indicators. So if you just go to the Alpha Trading Discord, if you want to get the indicators or even the tutoring package, they'll both be on sale for the Memorial Day weekend, starting, I believe, Saturday and going through Monday. Anyway, but more importantly, what is happening on the markets, right? If you look at the setups, the daily looks a little bit down for now. Of course, 4-hour as well. But if you look at how the asset has performed, it's pretty normal after you have a little all-time high for it to come down a little bit, obviously, because you have distribution and mean reversion happening, right? Even on lower time frames, obviously lower than the pretty big gap that we have there on the 4-hour, but you have other ones happening as well on lower time frames constantly, because the assets are constantly in distribution and mean reversion, right? So what does that mean overall? It basically means that there are basically up and down movements happening all the time, which is why it's silly for anybody to like try to give you a quote unquote buy signal. Like, when you watch these other YouTube Jimmies saying, enter your long positions now, and they'll show you like, I have a 25x position. Right? I won't mention who, but there's a bunch of moonboys out there that will say things like that, and they'll show you there's my multi-million-dollar position and it's 27x. Okay, so if you have let's just say $1 million on 27x. Obviously, you didn't actually put $1 million on the line, right? Right? You put like less than 50 grand on the line. Now, I'm not saying it's a tiny, negligible amount of money. It's certainly a lot of money for a lot of people. But it's not like the person's putting on, $1 million on the line and levying it up 27 times, right? It's not like their risk reward ratio is 27x on $1 million bet. No, it's 27x on whatever it is, 40 grand bet. That if it goes up, whatever, their trade is behaving as if it's $1 million on the line, but it's not, and that also means that they can lose money 27 times faster, right? Just as much as they can make money 27 times faster, right? Than if it was just a spot trade. So you got to be real careful with that, because it means, doesn't it, like, for whatever reason, the 27x number I'm picking, but there's a whole bunch of people who pick crazy numbers, 27, 25, 30, 33. They'll trade even higher leverage, and they'll tell traders to do the same, which is nuts. Like, think about it. If you're in a 27x, or just to make easy round math, if you're in a 25x trade, okay, just 25x, if the asset moves 4% against you, you're completely wrecked. And that's if you have no fees. And of course, there are fees, right? There's the fees of the asset being traded, like the fees of the entry, the fees of the closing of the position. There's the liquidation fees, right? There's no shortage of fees. There's at least 3, 4, sometimes 5, 6, 7 fees that you pay when you get wrecked. And and it's due immediately, and they take it automatically. And sometimes you have to move money from one account to another, and you can't do any withdrawals or anything like that if you have assets on the exchange until you pay your debt, right? So it's not worth it, right, to lever up that much. I understand some people feel like, oh, I have to do it, otherwise I'll never make anything. And you think you're being smart by only putting a tiny position, relatively. Well, if you put only a tiny position, relatively, it doesn't matter. It's still, if it moves 4% against you on a 25x position, you're wrecked. If it moves 10% against you on a 10x position, you're wrecked. If you don't think an asset can move 10% against you, I would point to many altcoins that just a few days ago did exactly that. I think it was maybe it was Sunday, I don't remember. Just a few days ago, not long ago, within the last week, right? Sometime between Sunday and a couple days ago. And price, I think it was when we hit the all-time high. When was that? The first time. So like Wednesday or something like that, Tuesday. It ran up, came back down, right? And so it was like crawling up all day when Bitcoin hit that all-time high at like 110,000, or no, 109,850. Okay, right around there, 109,845, whatever it was, 109,850 on average. And right there, the bots were like, "Yeah, no, you're not getting the 110," because they knew, obviously, they could see the liquidity pools at 110K. And all the retail traders who were just sitting there waiting to take their profits at 110, who had levered up positions. And the bots were like, yeah, this is the easiest money ever. Right? All the HFT managers are like, yeah, this is easy money. Let's run these trades here. And they made sure their bots ran sell orders when they got up to that 109,850, which, I mean, if you look at the VRE chart, it was very clear where they were running it to. Right? They ran it up there, took their profits by dumping, by selling like crazy right there and selling into the market, lowering the price by a couple, more than a couple percent, like 3, 4%. And many assets fell 4, 5, 6%. I saw a bunch of assets fall 8, even 10% in an hour. And the whole time it's misleading traders. It's like, it's dumping. I know it's pumping a little back up. And, oh, it's dumping harder. It's pumping a little bit back up. Don't worry, it's going back up. No, it's dumping more, and no, it's going to go back up again more, and it dumped more, and it did that. And many people got wrecked. I mean, many thousands of people were getting wrecked in that hour. Many thousands. And that's exactly what's going to happen to you if you take massively levered up positions. By the way, why is this title called Bitcoin is going to zero? There's that guy, what's his face? Dan something or other. I forget his name. Maybe it's not Dan. I don't know. I forgot his name. There's some charlatan out there who does these like like, I don't know what you call it, success, mindset, pop BS psychology kind of things where, you pay him a lot of money to go get yelled at by him for a while. And he tells you what a loser you are, all that stuff. He's like, there's many memes made of him on the internet. I'm pretty sure. In fact, I know he was covered by CoffeeZilla years ago, back in the day as well. And whatever, he's been around forever, this guy. And he claimed to know who Satoshi is, and that when people find out, it's Bitcoin's going to zero. As if knowing who Satoshi is would have any impact on the price. Like, okay, imagine like one of the worst people that you can imagine. Imagine Kim Jong-un is Satoshi Nakamoto, okay? If you found out it was him, how would it change the price? Does he make more money because of the fact that but that you're holding Bitcoin? Yeah. Okay. So Satoshi has 1 million Bitcoin. If you found out that Kim Jong Un suddenly has 1 million Bitcoin plus all of the Bitcoins that we know they've been stealing, would it make any difference to the protocol? No. The only thing that makes the price go up is the volatility, right? And the returns, which lead the price to the upside, right? The more buyers there are, the more buying there is, that's what makes the price go up. Would it make any difference whatsoever? Seriously, think about it. If you found out that the worst person on earth that you can think of, whoever it is, was Satoshi and had like 1 million Bitcoin, at least, right? Would it actually make a difference to the planet? Right? That's really what you got to consider. Because the answer is no, it wouldn't really, right? Now, maybe you wouldn't like the fact that that person is suddenly known to be one of the biggest, wealthiest people on the planet, and may very well become the wealthiest person on earth, unless Michael Saylor or some other group manages to get more. But again, those 1 million Bitcoins that Strategy wants to buy, those aren't all Michael Saylor's, those belong to Strategy. But Michael Saylor himself owns hundreds of thousands of Bitcoins, like more than 100,000, we know that, which is a very high number of Bitcoins to own, obviously. And he wants all the Bitcoin, right? But yeah, he wants Strategy to own more than 1 million, because that way they can be basically a bank, and they already can be. With hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin, they certainly can already be a quote-unquote bank and loan out Bitcoin to people, right? And charge interest on it, et cetera, et cetera. So they can make quite a lot of money being a Bitcoin bank. And that's obviously what they're attempting to become, or what they're working to become. They're not even attempting, they're just, that's their plan. But would it make any difference whatsoever if you found out that, Satoshi is some terrible criminal? Would it really make a difference to you? Would it make a difference to you if you found out that the maker of the United States dollar was some terrible criminal? I mean, probably not, because the original maker of the United States dollar is obviously long gone. And even the original maker of the fiat version of the US dollar, like the guy who etched the plates, right? Obviously long gone, right? Because usually you don't get that job till you're, pretty advanced. Like, you're not a young buck when you start carving the plates. And usually you have that job for 20, 30 years until you expire, right? So they pick people in their middle age or even late middle age to start doing that kind of engraving work. Is not for the faint of heart. It takes people who do things very patiently for a very long time, right? And yeah, they might be working in the trade for 10, 20 years before that, but to actually be the master engraver who does the actual plate of a national currency, typically you're like doing that already for like 30, 40 years of your life before you start doing that, which means you're getting close to normally what is retirement age for most people, and you're just hitting your stride. So if you do that work for 20, 30 years, you're usually, gone not long after you retire from that. And we've had this fiat stuff for, more than 50 years now. Like pure fiat, not even pegged to paper dollar, paper gold. Right? So obviously the original maker, I don't know who it is, but the original maker, the original designer of the fiat dollar is gone. Nixon, the president, who was the inventor of it, if you will, because he's the one who actually depegged the dollar from gold. So you could say he's the original creator of the fiat dollar, which is true in a political sense. He's gone. Right? Would it make any difference to you, though, if Nixon was still alive and you knew that he was the maker of the dollar, even though you should have known that the whole time he was alive after you did that, because he did it very publicly on television? No, it wouldn't make any difference to you, even if he held a lot of it. I mean, how would it make any difference to you? Okay, maybe it makes a difference in your minds, in your perception, because you think, oh, this evil person that you don't like has a lot of money, so they can do a lot of damage. They can do a lot of bad things. Okay, that's an arguable case. Okay, but what is the probability that that's the reality, that they're going to do their worst with the money that they've created? Damage. Okay, well, okay, arguably, but first of all, why would he, if he clearly is in the business of war to acquire more treasure? Why would he spend his own? Sure, he'll spend his national treasure. He doesn't care about that, as long as he gets to live like a king, right? He doesn't care how much national treasure he spends, and Russia still manages to make a bunch of national treasure by exporting oil and gas, right? Which he siphons off a huge chunk of the profits from in exchange for letting the oligarchs be the oligarchs that they are, right? So he has that as a revenue stream. Why would he spend his bitcoins, right? It doesn't make sense, especially if he was the creator of it and knew that it could potentially be worth a lot more than it currently is, especially given the reality of the world we live in, where he sees the fiat currencies are all going to, the fiat currencies are going to zero, right? And that's been obvious to anybody who's been in Bitcoin for a long time. And you can see it today. I mean, in 2013, the M2 money supply divided by the total market capitalization of every cryptocurrency was more than like $9,300 for every dollar, and the ratio now is like $7.32 to 1. Okay, what do you think? What do you think it's telling you? It's telling you that crypto is worth more and more and more by thousands of times. It's telling you the purchasing power of the dollar is sinking like a rock. Right? The crypto has lost more than 99.9% of its value. Again, that's not a fake number. That's a real number. The purchasing power of the dollar has lost 99.9% of its value against Bitcoin in the last 16 years. It doesn't have that much further to go to hit zero, right? To hit 100%. When it hits 100%, that is when it will stop being used. It won't just stop being a world reserve currency. It will stop being used, right? I mean, yes, governments may still use it to make payments or whatever, to settle debts, etc. And it could take 20, 30 years. Let's not pretend like it's going to happen overnight. It could take 20, 30 years, right? It's not like there's no wealth and no power in the US dollar. There absolutely is, because every other fiat currency is also falling fast. So the rate of falling and the rate of problems is all relative. And you got to also remember, debt between nations is forgivable, right? If you don't know what that means, it means, let's say France owes Bhutan some money. Well, Bhutan probably also owes France some money, in which case they can choose to forgive each other's debts at some point. And they often will. Like, that happens normally. Why would that happen? It would happen for practicality, right? Because the point of collecting the debt is to be able to have more capital accessible. Well, if you both owe each other $5, then you don't really owe each other anything. If you both owe each other $100 million, you both don't owe each other anything. If one of you owes the other $100 million and the other one owes the other $50 million, then basically one company or one group owes the other $50 million themselves. And it's better for the state of the world for the wealthier one to forgive the debt. Very often they will. Now, this doesn't happen necessarily in personal debts. Well, wouldn't that be nice? All right. But it doesn't. Why? Because people are not states. Even though states have many of the same rights that people have, which is a weird thing, but it's a real thing. The so-called rights of companies to have the same. Now, of course, that said, governments are made of people. No people, no governments, right? at least until the bots make all the governments. At what point will we actually see government being replaced by bots? And if you don't think that'll happen, and then I'll throw you one further. At what point will we see bots that are actually AI crypto bots creating governments and creating government policy and making political decisions? Right? At what point will that happen? Good wishes, good day, nice. Hello, Aisha. Good day to you. Where am I from, Brew? Well, every time I say where I'm from, people get upset. Some people, but I'll tell you anyway. I'm from Israel. Well, I live in Israel. I'm from the States and elsewhere. I'm a multinational person. I'm from different countries. I live in Israel. And I'm Israeli also. So yeah, that's where I'm from. So what exactly is happening elsewhere in the markets, in the crypto beans markets? Well, if you look at your crypto beans, do you guys remember the asset called Beans? How's that doing? I remember when that thing was all the hype. And I kept telling people, you'd probably be better off just buying Bitcoin. And the people in the Beans army were just saying, what are you talking about? Beans is the next Bitcoin. You'll see. And then chili was the next Bitcoin. And then hot potato. And then whatever. Now it's fart coin. I kid you not. Right? Suey coin. Like the sound of suey. Right? You know what that reference is? You're probably not a millennial. So think about the money you put at risk and where you put it, and what are you buying and holding? Like, do you actually want to hold for the long term fart coin? You actually think it has, not just because of the name, do you actually think it has a better use case than Bitcoin? You actually think it has a better model than Bitcoin? Remember, Bitcoin doesn't just have all those wonderful qualities. It's divisible and scalable and mobile and all that, just like, a proper crypto has to be. And immutable and decentralized, right? It's also it's not just that it's decentralized, it's the most decentralized. It has the most in terms of miners, right? It's the network with the most decentralized miners. And what's right up there with it? What other coin that is extremely similar to Bitcoin has pretty similar, almost identical distribution in terms of who's mining it? Can you name one? It's really close. Can you name one? Yeah, it's Litecoin. It is Litecoin. And how many Litecoins can there be ever compared to Bitcoins? Yeah, there can only be 4 times as many Litecoins as Bitcoins, right? There can only be 84 million Litecoins to compare to the 21 million Bitcoins, which means every block that is mined in Litecoin, you're basically getting 4 times as many Litecoin, but pretty much currently being held by mostly retail. So tell me again why you think Litecoin is not massively undervalued. Right now, it's last I checked, there's about a difference or ratio in price. I think it's like 1,000 to 1, more than 1,000 to 1. In fact, yesterday when I looked at it, it was around $99 for a Litecoin. So literally, you could buy more than 1,000 Litecoin and still not reach the price of 1 Bitcoin. And there's only 4 times as many in the max supply cap, which isn't even fully mined yet. But there can only be 4 times as many Litecoin as Bitcoin ever. And since Litecoin started after Bitcoin, it obviously has not mined as many times, as many blocks as Bitcoin has. So there's technically less than 4-to-1 Litecoin to Bitcoin right now. But when they are both fully mined, the amount mined will be 4-to-1, but the amount actually available will be different, since obviously, much of both currencies has been lost. And yes, people do lose Litecoins as well as Bitcoins. And they still do. To this very day, people still manage to lose access to their wallets. It happens. It happens even to people that know better. It really does. You may ask why. The answer is stuff. There's no simple explanation. Where are you from, Diddy Goku? Since you asked where I'm from. Leave a comment or something. Let's see. Right now, Bitcoin is continuing to drop, like I said at the beginning of the stream. On the 4-hour, you can see it is still looking a little bit to the downside. The daily obviously still remains looking to the downside. If you look at the volatility, you can see why it's very clear. Also, the entropy. 4-hour is looking, 90-minute is looking a little bit less to the downside, just a little, but still to the downside. But there is some some bull divs that's set up for now and could play. Like you could see a little bit of a retest towards the top of the power mean ribbon before it plummets down to retest the reverse wave trend around 108.871. Plummets. It's like a $2,000 drop, which may sound massive, but that's like a 2% drop, right? Right now it's at 110.854. So to go down to the reverse wave trend at 108.831 would really be 1.84%. Like, not a significant drop. And the entropy is contracting. It's back in random walk mode on the 90-minute. And the correlation is contracting as well and less significant. And if you look all the way down, let's just jump to the 15-minute. 15-minute actually is not looking so bad. Right, intraday scalpy monitor kind of thing. It's actually looking a little bit to the upside. On the 15-minute for now. Just fading out of a trending move back into a random walk, but still hanging on. Correlation is expanding, but less significant and negative. So that's how you're seeing the move to the upside a little bit. COV is coming down, negatively correlated, but not significant anymore. And that's why you're seeing, as it's beginning to slope to the upside, it's still very negative. You just got off of significant negative slope. So, and that's why the last candle is also to the upside on the 90-minute, on the 15-minute, sorry. And there was bull div that started to play out on the last candle and is continuing so far this candle as the returns continue to rise on increasing positive correlation. So that's why Bitcoin is rising right now, but that's why overall in the day it is still looking for now a little bit dumpy and is down about 0.77%, which is again not a huge number, not a massive amount, but it is, in terms of raw numbers from wick to wick, it went down from like 111.795 down to 110.545, and right now it's at 110.8. So it's gone down, more than $1,000 from the top. And from the top from the open, which opened at 111.713, down at 110.845. So it's down like $900, practically $850, more than $850 from the actual open of the day. So again, not a massive amount, right? Down 0.76%. But if you're levered up like 10x or something, you're already down 7.6% on the day. That's a big hit. Are you the kind of follower, sycophant, whatever you want to call it, of YouTube Jimmy, or just bad TA that you're going to be like, yeah, whatever, 10% is fine? It's not fine. 7%, 7.6% down is fine. It's not fine. You'll lose your market capital very quickly that way. You'll be wrecked in a very, very short amount of time that way. Right? You need to be not greedy when you're trading. And that means don't think that you can just pull a one-off trade and make, if you're not already wealthy with millions of dollars available to trade, that you can just suddenly trade and make $1 million on your next trade. It's probably not going to happen. If you're building wealth, you probably need to spend a long time doing it. And no, you don't need to just trade Bitcoin, right? You don't just need to trade crazy meme coins. You can also trade traditional stuff. You can also trade commodities or stocks or whatever. It just happens that there's enough volatility in crypto that you really don't need to trade with massive leverage positions in crypto. I mean, you really don't. You can trade spot positions and still make nice profits at the end of the day, especially if you use exchanges where they don't even necessarily charge you fees, right? There's plenty of exchanges now where they'll invite you to come and trade on their exchange because they know you're going to lose your money, probably, like most people do. And so they invite you to come and trade without spot trading fees because they know you're going to be tempted to use leverage on some coins where they do charge. They know. They design their site that way. How do I know? I used to do that for companies, right? And there are many companies. I still market companies, right? So I'm fully aware of how this works. But for many years, I helped financial trading platforms get more users. So I worked with the designers. I worked with the interface developers. I worked with the product managers. I was the running the marketing into the sites, getting the people to come in. I built the messaging and all the funnels and everything else you needed to, and I built all the other websites that had to drive the people into the site. So all the lookalike sites, all the kind of like clones of the money sites, all the mini sites that are essentially like the money site but unaffiliated officially, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm very familiar with the whole funnel flow of how you bring liquidity onto the market, right? And I'm very aware of the turnover rates and everything else to this day, because I still have a lot of friends who work in that field. Personally, I don't represent any of those kind of clients right now. It doesn't mean my agency doesn't, but I don't, because I don't at the moment. But I'm definitely aware of the market and the industry, and I can tell you. I don't even know if I should tell you that, but I will anyway, because what the hell? You're here watching this. You may as well learn some things. The old 90-90-90 rule, as you know, is not 90-90-90, right? If you don't know what the old 90-90-90 rule is, it's 90% of traders will lose 90% of their trading capital within 90 days, which was true until about 15 years ago. Or say even, just you want to make it easy, you say it was 10 years ago, but it really was more than 10 years ago. Gee, what happened around 15 years ago? Oh, yeah, 15, 16 years ago, Bitcoin started trading. Then what happened? Well, before Bitcoin became popular, there were other things that were still being used a lot. Like, yes, there's stock platforms where you can trade stocks, but there are also these kind of other kinds of platforms that are a lot like gaming that are also trading platforms. If you know, you know. Most of them are gone by law. They were forced to shut down. And that whole industry practically went away. But there's still some that are out there operating. And then crypto did become popular, more popular, I should say, than it was. And then the traditional markets saw that and said, oh, these bucket shops letting people trade crypto are letting them use pretty high leverage, 10x, 20x in some cases, back in the day, right? So they started offering more leverage to people on traditional markets, like on exchanges you could trade. And yeah, you could always use leverage on traditional exchanges, but some traditional exchanges, but not high amounts, right? Because you didn't need to give people high amounts of it. They would, whatever amount they would use, they would still, most people would get wrecked because they really had garbage information then, and they still do. And then with the advent of all the YouTube Jimmies and everything else, you got a zillion times more people entering the markets at a much younger age now. Like you got kids in school, like pre-high school, who are trading stuff, who are making meme coins and trading them. Were you trading stuff on the markets if you were in high school, middle school, or elementary school? If you were, raise your hand, because it's, I gotta say, that's pretty impressive from some point of view, and it may also be arguably a bit sad from another point of view. But it is pretty impressive in one sense, right? Even more than one sense. So kudos to you if you were. But also I feel a little bit for you, because it's like some of your youth was probably lost looking at screens and trading or building things to trade rather than being a kid. And in that sense, I feel for you, man, or woman. But in either case, anyway, I've gone now on a bit of a, but I did want to tell you the point of what in fact, it's not even close. If what I will tell you is, I actually told you the real stat now, it would probably affect not just how you trade on the markets you trade on. It would probably affect your behavior in general. But I'll put it this way. Far more than 90% of traders lose far more than 90% of their trading capital in far less than 90 days. And that's because, A, they can trade 24/7 with crypto assets, and B, also they can trade 24/7, by the way, by using traditional assets around the world that are open at different hours of the day, and they can use sites that let them trade CFDs, and they tap into markets that are open 24 hours, like, different markets around the world. There's always something traded at any given hour of the day. There's always some exchange. Even on a weekend, there's something being traded. There isn't a day when there won't be some traditional asset being traded. It doesn't happen, right? Any hour of any day, of any week, of any month, of any year, there is some market open somewhere where people are trading something. Even on Christmas morning, right? There will be some markets around the world trading. Even on New Year's Day, even on Easter, Passover, Ramadan, whatever. There's going to be some market open trading something on a traditional market. But even if you discount that, even if you say, no, okay, I only trade things in my country to make it easier, okay? Crypto is 24/7. And the amount of leverage offered now on crypto exchanges is insane. Yeah, some of them still only offer 20 or 50 or X, which is already crazy. Some of them offer only 100X, which is really still insane. But there's no shortage of them now that offer 200X, even 300X, even 400X, even 500X. You realize that at 500X, if the asset moves 0.2% against you, 0.2%, you're wrecked. 0.2%. And when you realize there's trading fees and there's liquidation fees and there's opening fees and closing fees, etc., your actual percentage that it needs to move is like probably not more than 0.15%, if you're lucky. And there's people trading that way right now. There's people pulling 500X trades. That's insane. even 100x, it moves against you 1% minus all the fees. So 0.9%, 0.8%, whatever your fees and everything else. 0.5% moves against you, you're wrecked, and it's less with all the fees. 300x, right? 1/3%, it moves against you and you're wrecked. 400x, 1/4%, it moves against you. I mean, look at Bitcoin. Look at Solana. Look at ETH. How often does the asset move 1/4 of a point? It'll do it in a 30-second candle like that. Like instantly. You won't even see it. It just will happen. Boom. 1/4 point? Are you kidding me? 1/2 point? How many times do you see an asset move 1/2 point in a day? And it happens like instantly because somebody puts in a big buy or a big sell and the asset moves 1/2 point. Happens all the time. And if you have a big position and you lever it up to a mass Bitcoin wallet address, and you can send me your money. Okay? If you're that desperate to lose your money, trust me, I will do better things with your money than just give it to an exchange. I promise you that. I will do better things. Hell, I'll even send you a list of what I'm doing with your money. It's crazy. So yeah, Bitcoin is not going to zero. Does it mean it's going to $1 million tomorrow? No, it doesn't necessarily mean that at all. It could take another 5-10 years, maybe longer. Maybe we'll never get to $1 million. But it's gone from 0 to 110,000 in 16 years. What is the percentage that's grown now? Let's take a quick look here. I am just curious. I gotta hide these numbers from or indicators from the screen so I can see it more clearly because there's a lot of info on the screen. All right. Let's just go put this sucker. Billion %. Name me another asset that's done that well in 16 years. Oh, wait, you can't. There isn't. 17